As a mobile RV tech, I have fixed hundreds of RVs face-to-face and thousands more online. And after seeing the same mistakes over and over again, I figured why not share the inside scoop? If you own an RV, here's what I would tell you to help you save thousands of dollars in RV repairs. Number 1, check your fuses first. One time I went out to work on an RV. I'm pretty sure it was for the fridge, but as I'm standing inside, I notice it is dark, like really dark. So I asked the owner, hey, can we turn on some lights? And she goes, oh, those haven't worked in over a year. A year. She had never even called me for the lights, just for the fridge. So I checked her fuse panel, swapped out a fuse, and boom, in seconds, all of the lights in her RV started working again. And the real catch, I showed her how she can do this 5-second fix on her own, so if her lights ever stop working again, she can fix it without having to call a tech. Here's what I showed her. If anything ever stops working in your RV, I mean, like, it won't turn on at all. This could be your lights, your fridge, your furnace, your microwave, I don't care. If it won't turn on at all, this is the first place I want you to look. It's your fuse and breaker panel. People tend to be a little bit more comfortable with the concept of their breakers because they're very similar to what we have in a house. But while you're here, do take a quick look over your breakers and make sure none of them have tripped. If any of them are in the off position, pop them into the on and see if that solves your problem. But what people tend to be less familiar with in their RV are the fuses, which tend to be hiding in the breaker panel, like right next to them. Your fuses are doing basically the exact same job that the breakers are, but just for a different type of electricity that's going through your RV. So if something in your rig has stopped working, you've taken a look over your breakers, they all seem good, then the next thing you're gonna do is just one by one, pull out each of these fuses and hold it up to the light. Inside that fuse should be a small filament. If that filament is intact, then that fuse is most likely good and you can put it back where you found it. But if that filament is broken or burnt looking in any way, then that fuse is most likely your problem and you should switch that bad boy out. Just head to your local O'Reilly's, AutoZone, wherever, and get a fuse that's the exact same size and the exact same rating. So if it's got a 10 on the top, you're going to replace it with a fuse that's the same size that also has a 10 on the top. Pop the new fuse into the slot that the bad fuse was in and see if that solves your problem. Fuses cost like 5 cents, calling a tech, several $100s. So it's worth even a try to see if it solves your problem. If you know how to use a multimeter, you can always test your fuses for continuity. If your fuse has continuity, it's good. If it does not have continuity, it's bad. If that all sounded like Greek to you, don't worry. The holding it up to the light trick will get you there like 80% of the time. Basically what you're doing when you replace that fuse is the same thing as flicking the breaker back on. Something tripped, and now you're untripping it. Every time I talk about this online though, keyboard warriors get very concerned that we haven't solved the underlying problem for why that fuse popped. Here's the thing though, fuses do have a shelf life. They are constantly heating up and cooling down, and eventually that does just wear out that filament in there. So especially if you're in an older rig that's been used quite a bit, there's a good chance that if you popped a fuse, it's just because that fuse was old and it was its time to go. If when you put the new fuse in, it immediately pops again, then sure, call a tech, it's time to do some digging. But if you put that new fuse in and your appliance now works and does for months on end and you never have a problem again, then it's probably fine. You're good. Go live your best life. You just solved a problem without having to call a tech. Good job. Tip number 2, your fridge has hidden fuses hiding in its circuit board. This is one of my favorite calls to get as a tech. I'll never forget the last time I got a call and it ended up being this. It was a dude who was like, I've tried everything. You'll never figure out what's wrong with your fridge. And I was like, bet. All I did was get to the back access panel of his fridge and take a picture of his circuit board just so I knew how it was wired up and could rewire it later. I then unplugged the fridge and disconnected all of the wires from the circuit board. Then just pop the cover off the circuit board. Literally all of those steps prior were just so you could take the cover off the circuit board. It's pretty simple from here. Then just take a look over that circuit board. I don't care if you have a Norcold or a Dometic. You're going to have 1, 2, or 3 fuses on that circuit board depending on the make and model. Just use your eyeballs. Take a look. Yes, these cylinders are also fuses. I know they don't look like the colorful candy colored ones that we just talked about, but this is still a fuse. You can just carefully hold it up to the light and see if the filament inside looks like it's intact. And if you got that multimeter, you can test it for continuity. Remember, if it has continuity, it's good. If it does not have continuity, it's bad. Most of the time when I get a call for somebody's fridge not turning on, it's most likely because one of these fuses has popped. Oh, and pro tip, to get those cylinder fuses out, the easiest way is to just take the little probe of your multimeter and just stick it behind the fuse itself and then just pop it out. You're going to be tempted to go at it with needle nose pliers, and I'm speaking from experience, you're much more likely to crush the fuse than get it out if you use those. So just use your multimeter probe. You're not going to short or electrocute yourself because you already unplugged everything. If one of the fuses was bad, go ahead and replace it with a new one. Again, you will be surprised how often the problem is just a bad fuse. If you found that interesting and you want to learn other ways to be able to diagnose problems in your RV like a pro, check out a link in the description. I have a course, it's called RV Academy. I'll walk you through how to diagnose pretty much all of the appliances in your RV step by step, just like if you were a tech. So that way you don't end up stranded out in the middle of nowhere and can't get a tech to you. If that sounds interesting to you, check the link in the description. Tip number 3, change out your anode rod if you got one. A brand new water heater for your RV is going to cost you at least $400. And that's honestly if you can get a good deal on it at the right time of year and before you even pay somebody to install it or fix any water damage that happens very often when these things break. So how can you prevent water damage? Change out your anode rod. Again, if you have one. If you have a Suburban water heater, and you'll know you have a Suburban if the back of the water heater is silver. This is a Dometic water heater because the back is black. Those are the 2 most common brands in RVs. If you have a tanked water heater, it is most likely a Dometic or a Suburban. If you have a Suburban water heater, somewhere on the front of it, it's going to look like it has a big metal plug. If you were to unscrew that plug and pull it out, it actually has a stick sticking out of that plug. That stick is called an anode rod, and it is a sacrificial rod that we put inside of specifically Suburban water heaters to help prevent corrosion. There's a lot of like special science and chemical reactions happening. The basics of it is that that rod is going to corrode away instead of the walls of your water tank. Exciting. But because the whole idea is that that rod is going to corrode away, it's considered a consumable item or a sacrificial item and needs to be replaced at least once a year. An anode rod is going to cost you probably like $13 and it takes about 5 minutes to replace. You literally just unscrew it, let the water drain out of the tank, and then screw the new one back in. Look up how to do it. Again, it's like a 5-minute activity. Totally worth it in the long run. That $13 and 5 minutes could save you hundreds, if not thousands of dollars if it prevents you from having to replace your water heater in your RV. And because most of the time the water heaters are tucked in and behind cabinets, mine for instance is like way tucked back here. If I wanted to get to the back of it, it would be a little bit of an endeavor. It means that most of the time, if you get a water leak in that tank, you don't know about it immediately. And it's usually honestly like weeks, if not months, before owners realize that they have a leak in their tank. So by the time we're looking at replacing the water heater, we're also usually having to replace parts of the cabinetry and parts of your RV floor due to water damage, which sucks, takes a long time, and is expensive. And a lot of that can be prevented by just changing out your anode rod. Bonus tip here, if you, like me, have a Dometic water heater, not a Suburban, you do not have an anode rod and you do not want to put one in. Suburban water heaters have steel tanks. That's why we're worried about corrosion. Dometic water heaters, on the other hand, have aluminum tanks. So we're less worried about corrosion when it comes to Dometic water heater tanks. There are unscrupulous companies out there that will sell you a Dometic anode rod, basically an anode rod that fits in this plug hole here. And they say like, oh, it's an added upgrade for your water heater. It's not an upgrade, it's a scam. Putting an anode rod into this tank would actually jumpstart corrosion, not prevent it. So don't fall for the scam. Don't put an anode rod in your Dometic water heater. You got this. Number 4, do not use PEX connectors on flexible tubing. This is a big one, guys. I have opened up the cabinet underneath the sink of a brand new RV and found the entire thing was misplumbed. So even if you're in a brand new RV, go take a look at your plumbing and see if this is going on for you. What am I talking about? This is a PEX crimp ring. Whenever we have a pipe in your RV that needs to make a turn, we use something called a right angle fitting. And then we use these PEX crimps to connect the pipe to the fitting. This is the most common way that RVs are plumbed. And if you start looking for them, you'll find these PEX connectors all over your RV. Once you get into RV plumbing, you're gonna run into scenarios where you have a lot of right angles happening in a small space, just in order to get around corners and get to places where it needs to be. And you may notice, once you get into it, crimping these PEX rings, pain in the butt. Really gotta pull out the big guns for that. And so you may start thinking to yourself, hey, I'm a smart cookie. Instead of having to make like 7 right angle turns to get around this thing, I'll just use a piece of flexible tube. Bypass all these turns. Look at me. Not the way to go, unfortunately. These crimp connectors were only meant to be used on rigid tubing like this. If you try to use them on a flexible tube like this one, it'll work usually for about 24 hours. And then it starts leaking again. You feel really smart for that 24 hours though. You really feel like you've solved the problem. Not the case. I have seen RV owners make this mistake. Like I said, I have seen new RVs come off the line misplumbed like this. And I've even tried it out myself just to be sure. But it's not the way to go, guys. If you want to use flexible tubing in your RV, you want to use a pre-made line. Pretty much any type of crimp connector or even like a hose clamp that you can find is just not going to be secure enough to keep water out in the long run. And like I said, when we were talking about your water heater, most of these connections are tucked away where you rarely ever see or think about them. And so when you do get water leaks, they can go on for a long time before they make a big enough puddle for you to notice. So not something that I want to take my chances with. I want to do it right the first time. Yes, using a bunch of fittings and making all of those crimp connections is a pain in the butt, but it's worth it in the long run. And then my final tip for today, remove the covers on your furnace vents before you take your RV into a shop. This is less of a thing here in Vegas, but I know down in places like Texas or other parts of the South, y'all get these bugs called mud daubers, which create these nests that are quite hard, actually. And these mud daubers really like to crawl into tiny nooks and crevices, like inside of the vents for your furnace. This has led a lot of people to add vent covers over the vents on their furnace to prevent bugs from crawling in. Here's the catch when it comes to those bug covers. If you bring your RV into a shop with one of those covers on, many shops out there will say that you have voided the warranty on your furnace by using those vent covers. The manufacturers of the furnaces are claiming that those covers do not allow for enough airflow to the furnace, and that they are a fire hazard. And so if they see that you have them on there, they're going to claim that you have voided your warranty for the furnace. And I have also heard stories of people going into shops with these vent covers on and just getting a lot of flack and having some hard time getting other things warrantied. The added wrinkle to all of this is the manufacturers of these furnaces will void your warranty if you have the covers, but the warranty also does not cover any damage to your furnace done by these bugs. So you are sort of stuck in a catch-22. I won't speak to whether or not I would put these covers on my furnace, just because that is not a problem that we really have out here in Vegas. But if you do have these on your RV, the very least that I will say is, if you're gonna bring your RV into the shop, just pull off the side of the road, just one stop before you go to the shop, remove those covers, and then stow them away. Put them in the tow vehicle. Put them where someone can't find them. Then bring your RV in the shop, get everything you need serviced, pop them back on when you're done. This will just keep you from having to have a lot of long, boring conversations about stupid stuff that you don't want to have a conversation about. So, save yourself the trouble. Just remove the covers before you bring it into a shop. Even if you're having a tech like me come out. I have had times where I just turned my eye like this and I was like, those covers were never there. And the owner's like, you are correct, I've never had these. And I was like, dun, dun, dun. Save yourself the trouble, I promise. But those are 5 quick and easy things that can save you a lot of time, money, heartache in your RV. If you want to learn other quick and easy tips like this, check out this video that could also save you thousands of dollars in your RV. And in the meantime, this has been RV Repair Woman. You got this.